G'day, fans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of DNA Reviews. It seems like 100 years since we were back here talking about Star Wars, and with me is the coolest dude in the entire universe, and I don't mean my own reflection when I look in the mirror. I'm talking about Mr. Aaron. How you going, old son?
They'll be taking our DNA to see who we are. It's been so long, hasn't it? I'm doing well. How are you?
I am plodding along. Star Wars is back. We are back. The world is good. And as of right now, we have been online for like months and months and months, and we've barely got anybody watching us, but that's okay. It is all good and exciting.
That's okay.
All right. So let's go. There's a lot to discuss. So how about we get into it now? For those people who haven't watched what we do on these shows before, and it's been a long time, and now, of course, our subscription number on YouTube's got a little bigger. We might get a few new faces turning up. If you're watching this in replay, apologise in advance. So our aim is to go through, in this case, 2 episodes. We've tried to cut it down to the core material parts that we wanted to cover off. Otherwise, we'd be here for 3 hours. And our aim isn't to just hang shit on the whole thing, but it's also to just look at things that worked, things that didn't work, cover off things that you're thinking, well, there could be questions that people want to ask and go, oh, what's the deal with that? How does this fit into this? Especially as Ahsoka covers off Rebels, was related to Rebels, and things like that. So if people have got questions they want to ask, they can just post them in the comments and we'll address them accordingly. So, so that's the key thing.
I don't think we hang shit on anything. I think we give analytical, critical reviews and highlight positives and negatives. But if you think you hang shit on stuff, go ahead.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't deliver. We're not here. It's not like we don't look at it as being a gush fest, and we also don't look at it as being a kick in the guts fest either. We actually like to look at things quite equally. Now, I don't know about you, but because the show is so related to Rebels, I mean, I haven't seen Rebels for years, so there's bound to be a lot of things that I've forgotten. So, and we're probably going to make mistakes along the way. And we go, well, we never saw that before. And somebody might say, but actually, you did in season 3, episode whatever. So you'll have to cut us some slack. So.
Dax, do you think that's an issue when even hardened Star Wars fans like us that watch all the media go, gee, I don't remember, enough to start with this series? I guess that's one of the things we'll look at as we do the review.
Well, it's a good point, but I like to think that people think that we're experts in this field, and sometimes we do make mistakes, but it is all good. Anyway, so what we're doing is we're kicking off with the first episode, Master and Apprentice. We've got a whole bunch of people watching us at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to kick it off. And, of course, needless to say, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the episode that aired like last Wednesday, you're a bit behind the 8 ball. Some people have, some people haven't, and it's all pretty good stuff. But anyway, we're going to go through it. There's no holds barred. And we kick it off, believe it or not, with a crawl. Not a like a Star Wars A New Hope kind of crawl. It's just red text straight up the screen. Fair bit of reading in this, Mr. Aaron. What do you think?
It's like we're watching Dune or something. I did think the one thing that the Star Wars Disney Plus universe is missing is maybe the John Williams music and the opening crawls. Now, maybe they're going to just reserve those for cinematic movies. But I did think if you're going to put a crawl up, come on, just do the Star Wars crawl. They've done it on animated series before and things like that. This is the closest we're going to get, but they didn't do it. This is something like the Highlander movie or one of these other movies. So if you're going to do a crawl, just do a Star Wars crawl.
Well, it's very funny you should mention Highlander because there's a fantastic Highlander reference later on. All right, so there's a lot in this dialogue that came out. I mean, it was a lot to read, really was. It was like, oh, my God. Now, I thought, the whole thing of Thrawn in exile. Now, if you've never watched Rebels or any of the other stuff, you'll have no idea who Thrawn is. We'll cover that off in a second. The whole thing about a map is suddenly we're in like Force Awakens all over again with missing maps. I thought that was just like the ultimate MacGuffin. They make a reference to Ahsoka being a Jedi Knight, and of course, she was never a Jedi Knight. She was only a Padawan. I mean, that's just an absolute no-brainer. And of course, the Imperial remnants. And there's a lot to digest there on the first read. And I must admit, when I first read that, I was like, oh, I'm just trying to take it all in. It just kept going and going. Because when you have text on the screen, you don't know when it's going to finish. And it's like, it's like 2 paragraphs, or it's just going to keep going forever. So, holy guacamole.
Yeah, well, I did think there was a lot to take in, and it goes back to, I guess, what we were saying. You've got to fill in some of the backstory even fans who've watched Rebels and Clone Wars, this starts in a totally different place. Even if you're up to date with The Mandalorian, it started in a different place. Dags and I, we will bring it up later. We're having a discussion about exactly where in the timeline this was because of events in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I'm going to cover that off a bit later on. We did confirm it is the same year as the season 3 of Mandalorian, but we don't know where it fits in the scheme of things. Guy said, and I agree, the red was hard to read. And I thought, because I had the Lucasfilm was in red, not entirely sure why they did that. And I thought, red text on black could be a little bit intense, but I just thought it was a lot to take in, and I thought people who don't know the characters or don't know Rebels, they're going to be a little bit lost. So
It's hard
yeah,
to read unless you switch your eyes to Sith, and then you can read the text fine.
exactly right. Or switch them to nerd. Very good. Now, so for those who are completely oblivious as to what was going on with all this reference to Thrawn and Ezra, and if you have never seen Rebels, you'll never know who that is. In the last episode of season 4 of Rebels, so what happened? Ezra, the character, this guy here, and Thrawn had a bit of a face-off on his Star Destroyer. It was all a bit of a big deal. It was all very, very exciting. The Purgles, which are down the bottom there, the space whales, which connect to the fly-off and hyperspace, they took the ship and they took off into Nana land, and we don't know where they went. So that's the reason why they're talking about he's vanished, right? And so wherever Ezra is, Thrawn is. That's the logic behind that. So if you've never seen Rebels and you've got no idea what all that was about, that's what it was about.
If they don't know where he went, how come there's a map to him? Who knew where he went to make the map?
Yeah, well, that's a good... That's a very good... It's like the Sith blade in Rise of Skywalker that just happens to be shaped like the Death Star. It's like, hang on, that means it was made after the Death Star crashed. Don't worry about the details. Now, DJ's joined us. DJ's notorious for writing War and Peace posts, so let's have a quick sticky beak at this one. But again, Disney Star Wars characters have the same too close to the real. Morgan Elsbeth, Ezra Bridger, Tobias Beckett. These are all too close to the real world. It doesn't matter. I mean, Luke is a real world name, and Hans, whatever, is a real world name. You got to cut them some slack. At least they're easy to remember, as opposed to some of the other ones.
It's not up there with the creativity of "You're a Real Poof" or "A Lying Sleaze Baggo," is it?
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, exactly right. We start off on a big ship. It's all great. It's as bright as anything. And as I said, we're just cutting it down to the key aspects of the show. I thought this was so funny, right? What a weird, wacky bridge this is. The captain sits up there way on his own. All the crew members are miles apart from each other. So they clearly can't do the Star Trek thing where they can whisper to each other. I mean, this poor guy down here, he's just on his own. It's like he's got no one to talk to. And there's a person off screen way over there as well. So I thought that was an unusual sort of layout for a ship.
The distance between the layout for people explains the massive insignia of the ranking, because you need a great big silver disc with one point in it. If you can only see them from way across the room, that must be the ensign. Oh, that must be the captain,
Yeah, that'd be funny, eh? So with your gloves and that, you get a set of binoculars as well, so you can see who's that? Oh, goodness gracious. So DJ said, and this is true, Ahsoka is Rebels season 5, effectively, right? And that's I don't think they're holding anything back on that one. I mean, the show is very much Rebels orientated. Dave Filoni, who created Rebels, is really involved with this. And we've discussed this. A lot of fans, a lot of Star Wars fans even, never watched Rebels, right? We know that for a fact. And I think if you're going to, you need to ask those who have never seen Rebels if they could understand it and get a gist as to what was going on. Some probably will, some probably won't. And of course, it's not aimed at the general public who will have no idea what it's all about. So unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. They've aimed it at the fans. It's a bit like Andor was aimed at the fans, and some will get it and some won't. What do you think?
Yeah. My wife is a good example of that. She's an intelligent, not Star Wars fan that gets to watch everything. And she watched about 2 episodes of Rebels, and said, this isn't for me, and drops back into this and remembers the characters, but was sort of saying, so what happened to Ezra? Did Ahsoka and Sabine have a falling out and all of that? So she knew it enough to know the characters, but didn't know any of the backstory. And after 5 minutes of the episode, she was into it. That was all forgotten.
All right, cool. Chrissy's on the ball. Yeah, COVID filming at its finest, social distancing. That kind of wasn't it? They said, no, we're going to stick them miles apart from each other. And it would. It was just a weird layout. And the captain's up there by himself going, well, here I am. It's all party time here. So he turns to number 1, and number 1's like on the other side of the country. So. Oh, dear. The captain is played by Mark Rolls. I actually don't know who the actors are. So they're using a lot of European-based people now for a lot of these shows, and I've got no idea. No, so I've got someone else can look at that one, but I don't think it was Drake from Aliens.
Drake from Aliens. So, I didn't pick up on that. It might be worth checking up, but I didn't look like him, but who knows?
Yeah.
Aliens was a long time ago, wasn't it?
It was 1986. And I tell you what, you're doing well with the DNA reviews when William says he's not even watching Ahsoka, he's just here to watch us. So there you go. Yeah.
We aim to please, William.
Indeed. So the show kind of emulates a bit like the Phantom Menace at the start of that. 2 Jedi, in inverted commas, turn up to the ship. And to Hale's credit, that's the captain or the commander on the left, he picks out pretty quickly that these guys aren't Jedi. I mean, of course, there's no Jedi Order anymore. That's been destroyed from 30-something years ago. And so this is the introduction of the two baddies, as it were, Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, or I think it's Hati, which was kind of interesting. And of course, they all take over the ship, and we saw that in the trailer, so it was a bit of a no-brainer as to what was going on. For those who don't know, the actor who played Baylan Skoll, who was Ray Stevenson, actually passed away after filming had finished. So they were already going to have to write his character out somehow or other for season 2, if they do a season 2. That's the reason why you had a dedication for him at the end. So it's like, yeah, it's that unfortunate. So he's one with the Force, effectively. So, yeah.
There you go. DJ is doing our research for us.
Googled it. It's Mark Rolson, Drake from Aliens. Oh, well, there you go. Fancy that. Good stuff. Well, there you go. So what that Hayes character should have said is, instead of saying they're coming straight from, so they're coming out of the goddamn walls.
Game over, man. Now I do
game over, man. Game over.
I do wonder. You work out that they're not Jedi, but they're probably evil. Do you go and let them know by being pompous? Wouldn't you let them go, okay, we'll take you down to the cell blocks to get the prisoner, then secure their ship and make sure that you don't get like chopped in half and your whole crew goes and you get blown up yourself? I did think the captain was a bit overconfident and maybe stupid in what he did, because they lost everything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's like, oh, these are bad guys, but I'll let them on board anyway, and I'll call their bluff.
The other thing I was going to ask you, do you think if he had said, okay, we'll give you the prisoner, and they'd gone down and got the prisoner, and they would have left everyone alone, or would they still have killed everyone?
You would have thought they would have knocked everyone, because they destroyed the ship anyway. I don't know, because they don't want people to know. It's like, oh, there's these two bad dudes running around, and his photographs what they look like, even though they've got holograms, images of them later on. It's hard to say. Bad guys being bad guys, it's hard to say. I don't know.
True. What I liked about Baylan, which is different from a lot of the Star Wars black and white villains, later on he was talking about what a shame having to kill Ahsoka because there's not many Jedi left.
That's the end of the second episode. We've only just started the beginning of the... Mate, you're like half the people watching the show. You've got to take things slowly. We haven't even got to that stuff yet. Just take a chill pill, son.
I'm just bringing in...
Oh, my God. He's reading the last page of the book before we've even opened the cover.
I'm just bringing in his character for this situation from what we learn about him later. Like, he seems conflicted, and if anyone's going to go good or turn, it'll be him, I think.
I love it. And I like it. I said, dude, just stop. And you just kept going. But you are right. We will cover that off later on. All right. So a few interesting things regarding our baddies, right? Now, Shin is the lady. I like the idea. I don't know why they've done this, but she's got the Padawan hair braid. Now, I'm assuming that Skoll actually got her to do that because he was once a Jedi, as they discussed later on. Not entirely sure what the motivation is. It's not a bad thing. It was just an observation. I go, oh, that's kind of cool. And I got some observations about Shin later on, which I thought was kind of intriguing. But you are right regarding the baddies. They are a little different to what we normally get to see, which was kind of cool, as opposed to Morgan Elsbeth, the antagonist of the series who we first met in The Mandalorian. I've got some thoughts and views about her later on too, which is interesting. And I think the handcuffs she's wearing is similar to... Actually, no, because Luke had his crossed like that, if I recall, in Return of the Jedi. So having them straight out, it could be different. So that's okay. But yeah, she's the baddie of the show. And as we discussed, there's a lot of female characters in this show, which is good. You know, they're everywhere. And yeah, there's a huge variety to choose from, and it's good to see. So yeah.
With the whole Dark Jedi Padawan apprentice rather versus Sith, I think it's a different way in which they're, I guess, teaching the Force. But that does make me wonder, and I think I discussed this. When you go bad and you go full Sith, you get the orange or yellow eyes. If you're just a Jedi that doesn't go Sith, but goes the dark path, do you still get the cool yellow eyes, or is that only if you go full Sith?
That is a good point, because we never saw Dooku with the yellow eyes. He didn't do that, right? Even when he was going in Tyrannus mode, or whatever that is. I don't know. You would think that's a good point when you've got Dark Force or Dark Force users. That's bad English. Dark Force users, they're the bad guys. And then you take the step up to the Sith. But yeah, as we've said, there can only be 2 of them, even though they changed that rule later on, which means you've completely given over to the baddies. And maybe that's where the red eyes come from. But it was really only Anakin who had that. And I mean, Maul kind of had it too, I guess, but that could have been part of his race. But Dooku didn't do it. And I don't know. It's an interesting observation, but it is a way of saying, oh, yes, you're the next level up. So if you had a room full of Dark Force users and 2 dudes have yellow eyes, you go, oh, okay, you guys are clearly the serious puppies. It's a good point. But yeah, it wasn't consistent the whole way through. So interesting. There you go. Love it. Very, very cool. All right. So that was our baddies for the moment. So we'll just leave them where they are. we catch up with Ahsoka, right? And she's chuffing around a temple, which we discover is made by the Night Sisters of Dathomir. So they keep popping up everywhere. So they were first originally created in a book. I don't know what, Courtship of Princess Leia or whatever, way back when, got canonized in the Clone Wars quite significantly, actually. And they've popped up again here, which is kind of groovy. So the old temple built by the Night Sisters, go figure that. And we finally get Ahsoka doing Ahsoka things. And a few people have noted, clearly the show's pace is a lot slower than other shows have been. And it's really intentional. She's in this room for quite a while. And her actual characterization has been questioned by some people as well, because it's actually kind of bland. She's almost like, as was mentioned, like Qui-Gon-like. It's like no sense of humor at all. The days of being snips, that's kind of like long gone. And if anything, I don't know if some people are sort of saying, yeah, it's working or not working. So what are your thoughts?
I've met customers who have said both. I kind of thought what I liked about Ahsoka was her personality and her spunkiness, and it does seem that they've drained all of that out, and she's walking around very Obi-Wan training Anakin, sort of above it all. So I don't know if that's true to her character or it's just a progression of her character, but I do like the spunkiness better just because it's better to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't interesting. It's like, oh, she's really, really toned it down. Whether she's because she's older, I don't know. There's a good comment here from Christy about the hair braid that Shin's got. Shows her place in his view. That's a fair call. So, I mean, we never understood why they had the hair braid for the Padawans in the first place. That was clearly a George Lucas thing. But yeah, so for whatever reason, if you're looking for exciting characters, suddenly Ahsoka, who's the lead of the show, is not exciting. So make of that what you will. Whether it will make people want to gravitate to other characters, and there's a funny situation coming up very, very soon. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I don't know if you picked up on this, right? And I read a lot of reviews, and no one noticed this, but I picked up on it straight away. And I had a moment. I was like, okay, being the nerd that I am, when she uncovers this thing, this shape thing, which the ball's inside, I thought straight away, it's like, oh my goodness, they're connected with the fifth element. It looks like one of the stones of the fifth element. Did you pick up on that?
No, I can see it now, but I didn't think.
Oh my god! Oh yeah, fire, water, earth, and something else, and wind. I think it was. And I thought, oh my god, maybe this is the sixth element. And I was like, oh, I nearly had a good laugh when I saw it.
Yeah, the Force is the sixth element.
Now, the other thing that my nerdy brain went into, and once again, I said this to Moneybag Sullivan when I saw him yesterday, and he had a bit of a laugh. Right? Did you think of this? She pulls out the ball from the fifth element. Right? First thing that I come up with. Oh no, she's holding a thermal detonator.
No, I went the other way where I'm like, I hope she doesn't put that ball into lament configuration and summon the Cenobites kind of thing. So I was thinking more horror.
Oh, I just had a laugh when I saw that. She's holding it exactly the way that Leia did it. Oh my god, that's an absolute classic. So where are we? I like this from Deb. Yes, good to see Deb's joining us, the director of Star Walking Inc., the Star Wars Appreciation Society of Australia, Ahsoka Tomb Raider. It was actually, when you sit and think about it, so that was kind of groovy.
Now, this is another thing that does my head in, Dags. They go down. How long do you think that map's been sitting there for?
Yeah, you'd think it'd be. Hang on. I've got to
It's
try
got
and
to
think.
be.
No, it wouldn't be that long. A few years, because if that's supposed to be the map to Thrawn, then 7 years, 8 years. Something
No,
like
I get more like what Deb's saying about Tomb Raider. It seems like an ancient thing that's been there forever. So is it some Force intuitive thing that put the map there that they knew in the future that's where Thrawn would be, or did someone pop it there a couple of years earlier? And if they did, why? It's not safe to put there because Ahsoka just got it.
Yeah, that's something I think that the writers just said, don't worry about it. It's all good. They just made a map, shoved it in this thing. It's all cool. Don't try and analyze it. So
do you know what would have been really cool? Your thermal detonator thing. When she goes to take the map, she sort of switches over a thermal detonator like Indy, just so there's no booby traps.
If that's the case, before she pulled it out, she should have done the old hands like that. Now, this is a long comment. I'm just going to cut it through very quickly. So DJ's mentioned about the fact that the characters are all pretty subdued, right? They're missing all the fun and the laughter and all the usual craziness. And yeah, it's everybody, as I said there, everyone is cold and aloof. And I thought, yeah, well, it's fair enough too. So maybe because everyone's older than what they were in the animated series. Sorry, dude.
It's probably early in the episode for us to talk about it. But I found the pacing really weird, where there's really exciting fight or chase scene, and then when you get to the characters, it just goes right down to flat and long. And then there's another exciting, and I know that's how they structure stuff, but this was a real juxtaposition between the really exciting Star Wars stuff and then the slow character moments. And it seemed like the director's like going, okay, we've got 5 minutes. We need another exciting bit. Okay, we've got 5 minutes. And so I did notice that. And when you're watching something and you notice it on the very first viewing, that can be a problem.
Yeah, because when Ahsoka's in that temple, she spends ages in there, like twisting things around and moving things around. And it's like, oh, it's like you could have made this a lot quicker. And I think if there's going to be a criticism, I mean, I get it, they're pacing it out, that's fine. But sometimes you can be too slow. And it's almost like you look and say, just bloody turn the thing on and open it up and pull it out and let's move on. But that's obviously maybe they are trying to make people say, oh my God, it's a 47-minute episode. How awesome is that? But 20 minutes is spent just not doing anything. So who knows? Very good. Moneybag said he sort of Assassin's Creed when Ahsoka grabbed the ball. Make of that. And yes, it's all good fun. Anyway, so she grabs the ball, and we're going to have a bit of a laugh about that later on as to how she unlocks it. Gets up the top, and there's some bad dudes waiting. Now, I always wondered, right now, we do see this in Revenge of the Sith, so it's not the first time. But why do droids wear cloaks? They don't need to keep warm. They're freaking droids for crying out loud. It looks good. I don't get it.
I think it's just a status thing, maybe like military wear, just so the droid sees that one's a higher ranked droid from a distance. I don't know though. It's speculation.
It does look good, but I don't get the logic of it. As you said, the Magna Guards wear them in Revenge of the Sith, and this one says, "Give us the map." And I thought, mate, he sounds just like Kylo Ren. It's like, what are the chances of that?
I do. A lot of the droids in this series, they do look like after the black hole went through the black hole, it turned up in the galaxy far, far away, and they all joined the star pool from Star Wars. A lot of these have that sort of gothic black hole droidness about them. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that the stars and the stuff from the Disney black hole movie.
I mean, it did look good, and I had no problems with it. It all worked quite well. It's just funny that he say, give us the map. Never heard the word map ever in the entire Star Wars universe until Force Awakens, and now we're hearing it here. And of course, it is mentioned that Morgan hires mercenaries, and I was just wondering if these guys, droids as they are listed as mercenaries. I don't know. It didn't matter. It was a good scene. We'd seen it in the trailer. Deborah said, and it's a fair call. I wasn't being critical about it. It was just an observation. I know other people have picked up on it about the speed, about the fact that it is a bit slower. Not saying it's a bad thing. It's just an observation. But I just noticed with the temple thing, it really was kind of drawn out. And that was obviously part of what they're doing.
A good example would be, I mean, no director is up there with classic Spielberg. If you look at that as the same as the opening to Raiders of the Lost Ark, they pack so much more in with different puzzles and traps in the same amount of time, where Ahsoka's just sort of looking at the walls and stuff.
That's a good point. There are no booby traps whatsoever. None of the, there's nothing to see. He lets me puts the stick in the ground and the spear comes out or the arrow. None of that whatsoever. She's just wandering around having a good old time, just trying to work out how to unlock it all. Yeah. Anyway,
I did think when they actually did some shots where you look at the witches. I presume they're the witches on the wall, and they sort of do some ominous movements over them. I did wonder if there was going to be a booby trap or something to do with the statues.
What they needed was the eyes of the statues to disappear and like human eyes pop in and they're looking around like, the old newspaper thing. Like it's like, oh my God, she's being watched. What do you feel like? I feel like I'm being watched. Now, Deb's come up with why did the droids self-destruct? It seemed counterproductive. And I tell you what, I didn't get that either. They just went in complete panic mode and said, instead of being captured, we're just going to go thermonuclear ourselves. And of course, that was a big bada boom if ever there was one. Oh, and what are they carrying? Bloody thermonuclear weapons or something on board? But that was a bit weird, wasn't it? And in the end, it was for nothing because she got away.
There is a precedent from that. IG-11 tries to self-destruct quite a few times in the first episode of The Mandalorian for what seems like very little reason at all.
I suppose, but I thought it was interesting. It's like, we've lost a couple of bad guys. Maybe our cloaks are going to get ruined. Quick, let's blow up. I don't know. Yeah. It was an action scene. Obviously, you're not meant to overthink it. I get it. It's all good. So, very good. It's really common these days for streaming shows to have weird pacing, and the reason they do that is because they don't have to worry about trying to fit within a certain time frame for TV commercials. So, they can do that, and maybe they've listened to people previously, or they've watched Andor, and they go, you know what, slow pacing is the go. Anyway, it is what it is. So, doesn't matter. It was a good fight scene, and all very, very groovy, and in the end, it actually meant nothing at all. It didn't achieve anything. She just got the thing and got away, and the world is good.
Jumped off just in time, and then she's screaming, "What's this?" And the droid's going, "That's my pet Rathtar Reggie."
Yeah. You know what the other thing is? If you're going to self-destruct, go into self-destruct mode, you think I'm going to blow up like within 1 second, not like 15
Not a
minutes or
countdown.
something. It's like, what's the point of that? Self-destruct mode, gone, done. And that's the end of that. So, anyway, whatever. And you thought if Ahsoka was going to use any special power, she's got to take a lesson out of Phantom Menace. You know how Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon do that really super fast running that we never saw anywhere ever again. Ahsoka could have done that. So, anyway.
That would have actually been cool if you were right. When they self-destructed, they did self-destruct instantly, like 3, 2, 1, boom. But she outrun it with Jedi speed. That would have been cool.
And that would show how powerful she is. But clearly, that just wouldn't have worked. But whatever. So very, very good. Hang on, I like this. He's overthinking it. A cape would change your body shape, breaking up your shape and camouflage. Particular, you're a droid. Who gives a rat's ass what shape you are?
Droids can eat as much as they like, and no one cares.
Yeah, I love it. But it looks good when it's blowing in the wind. All right, so we got on board the ship. So you got Hyang. It's an unusual name. I do struggle to pronounce it. He did originate in the Clone Wars, and he was the guy or the droid who instructed the younglings on how to build their lightsabers, which was kind of cool. And I think I haven't got a picture of it, but I think he looks exactly as he does in Rebels. It was kind of cool. I've got no problem with that. Also, from Clone Wars. So they used the code name of Fulcrum. And of course, that's a little bit of an in-gag to Rebels because in the Rebels, the Fulcrum character was the mysterious spy. Nobody knew who it was. It was just this person who was providing information, and it was just kept as a mystery for ages. It turned out it was Ahsoka, and then it became Callus later on. He became Fulcrum, and it's just funny. It's gone back to Ahsoka. So, I thought it was kind of a nice little gag for those who picked up on it. So, yeah.
Yep, and DJ's picked up my issue, which isn't an issue for anyone but me. But it was just like every time he spoke, I'm like, well, that's the droid that's Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly right. If only you had a sonic screwdriver with him, he would have been good to go. So, like when Sabine's injured later on, he says, "That's okay, it's okay, mistress. I have a sonic screwdriver." Whatever. Unbelievable. Yes, and yes, you're right. In the second episode, Deb, she still doesn't use the super speed. It was only ever used once in all the saga. No other Jedi's used it. It was just, and it was kind of a bit stupid, even in Phantom Menace. But it was like, they've got an extra power we didn't know about. And I think the amount of times they could have used super speed to get away from things didn't happen.
Well, do you know what would be the best power ever? Like the power to pass your lightsaber to someone else on the other side of the galaxy because you have a force connection with them, which happens in the Rise of Skywalker. We've only ever seen it in that. It's almost like the writers make up force powers as they go along.
And there's a new one. Sorry, there's a new one in this series, and I go, oh, hang on, I haven't seen that one before, but we'll get to that when we get further along. So we're back with the Rebels characters. They're all coming into live action now for the first time. So Hera's finally on board, Hera Syndulla, which is good. I mean, I kind of thought it worked. It kind of didn't work at the same time, but each of their own. But she's green. She's Twi'lek, got the Leku, the whole bit. So I don't know if you have any thoughts and views. I thought, no, actually did all right, but yeah, whatever.
You know I do because we've discussed them. I actually love Mary Elizabeth Winstead as an actress. She's in some of my favorite movies. And she's great as this, except for me, it doesn't really fit with the timeline of Hera because she is a woman, a grown woman when you have Ezra as a kid and Sabine as a teen. And now she's sort of the same age. She hasn't aged at all. Now that's pretty much just me being picky, but I did think maybe an older actress would have worked better in this role.
Here, Deb says here, thought she'd be shorter. You know what? I hadn't thought of that, but that's a pretty good observation, actually. So, yeah. I mean, if you do watch Rebels and you see Hera in Rebels and you think, okay, this is the live action version, do they match up? I mean, they obviously look the same. She's got the goggles and all that sort of business. It's probably one of those things you could look at and go, oh, there's probably all these other actresses that may have actually fit the character better. Yeah, it is what it is. It's not a bad thing. It's not like outstanding. It's not like, I don't think it's one of those things where people are going to go, oh my God, that is like the most perfect casting you'll ever get. But it works for the show, so that's the most important thing.
I think, it's one of those things where you have some characters you want to get it closer, but when you have a character who is green with head tails, you put that on just about any actress and they can do it because, that's close enough. It is just a hang-up I had. It isn't anything against the character at all, really.
Yeah, and when you said about the aging thing, I picked up on this. I was going to put in there. Other people have picked up on it about the aging. Do Twi'leks age the same as people? And you don't know. So they may have a
obviously they don't, because when they got the actress that played Ula back to do extra scenes for Return of the Jedi, she hadn't aged in 20 years.
That's a good point. I like this one. So you could have had Ahsoka doing the super speed running, but doing it in slow motion. That's like the $6 million man. So they're about to blow up, and then she goes, "I better bolt." It takes her 4.5 hours to get off the platform onto the ship. Oh,
and then when she gets there, bionic Bigfoot is waiting for her.
And she's looking for the ship, and she's using the eye. That's the world unite. Oh my goodness! All right, so this one I picked up on. I thought, I just noticed all this stuff. I'm just tragic. What can I say? When they're at the ship and they're looking about the two nasty passes who came past, they destroyed the New Republic ship. This is Skull and Shin. And it's also referred to a starship. It's like, hey, there's one for the Trek fans out there. I think the only time I can think of where a starship was used in Star Wars was actually in Attack of the Clones, when the Nemoidians say we need to get the starships back into space. Oh, Trek fans went completely troppo over that. And they actually mentioned it here. So I thought, because you hardly ever hear the word starship in Star Wars. I mean, there could be other examples, but they're the only ones I thought of. So, but I thought, mate, the Trekkies would have loved that. So we've got a bit of Docky Who, and we've got ourselves a bit of Trek, a Star Trek as well. Mate,
That
a bit of everything.
that picture had it was an example of something I didn't pick up in, but my wife did and mentioned after the episode. She said, "Why is his apprentice always looking down the whole time?" She reckoned that most of the scenes she was in, she was looking at her feet, and when she looked up, she didn't move her head; she just moved her eyes up to look around. So that was probably a director's choice or something, but I didn't notice it. But that picture obviously proves it.
Yeah, true. And as I said, I got something I've got to say about Shin a bit later on, which I thought was an interesting observation. Now, this is one I thought was funny, right? So Ahsoka says these days there are a few who can wield the Force. And that's kind of not really true, because it was established in, funny enough, Rebels, that Force-sensitive kids are being born all the time, right? We don't know why, it just happens. And, of course, we see that in Force Awakens, and especially in Last Jedi, when you got the boy who can sweep and all this sort of bizarre. So it's not like just because the Jedi are dead, that Force sensitivity has just died out altogether. So I thought that was an interesting comment. So I just want to put that out there.
There's
And
probably
just one of those sort of things.
A difference between using it and wielding it. Wielding it like presumes training, and bending it to your will, where using it might just be a reflex or something.
Well, that's right. You can be Force sensitive and not know it, right?
Yeah.
And that was the thing with Anakin as a kid. That's a very good point, because she's saying, what did she say? She said, who can wield the Force. Okay, that part is true, right? They can wield the Force because they haven't been trained. So she's correct in that one. But Force sensitivity is still common in the galaxy far, far away. It didn't just switch off. That's a very good what put it. So it's semantics with the words. So I get that. Now, this one I did not get, right? This one I was like, okay, the writer's made a bit of a balls up here. Hera says Thrawn is believed to have died at the Battle of Lothal. She knows that didn't happen because she was there when Ezra was on the ship with Thrawn when they took off into Nana Land, right? So I don't know how they've cocked that one up. So, yeah, I mean, they're all there. And, of course, if Thrawn died, if she thought Thrawn did die, then that means Ezra's dead as well. So that, I think, was a bit of an oversight on the writer's part. So unless she's suggesting that other people think that Thrawn died, but it didn't come across that way when I heard it. So I don't know what you think.
Well, you and I have both had a discussion already when we watched the episodes for the first time about how some of the mythology with Thrawn didn't seem to match up with some of the other things we've already seen. So I think it is just one of those things where they said, okay, this is the story we're going to do. It might contradict some little things in other stories, and we're not going to worry about that because there doesn't seem to be much reason for things like that to be in this show.
Yeah, it was just the way it was worded. I thought, hey, you know what happened there. So I thought that was interesting. Christy said, rumors, it could be, but the way it was said, it's not like from what I can remember, she said, oh, everybody thinks he died. She actually makes it sound like she knows or thinks that he died. Does that make sense? So it was just the way it was mentioned. And DJ said, doesn't she have a half human kid somewhere? That's Jason Sindula. So, and he appears in the
Spock.
What? Shut up, you. We're off the Trek stuff. Yeah, so Jason Segura, he appears right in the very last episode, last couple of minutes, or not even that, last few seconds of Rebels. So, and I think he pops up in this show too at some point. So there you go. That line irritated me the most. Should have disappeared rather than die. Yes, exactly right. So you've picked up on as well, Deb. So yeah, they've made a bit of a balls up here. So, and obviously that may have been put in for the audience who've never watched Rebels. So it's like saying, we thought Thrawn died at the Battle of Lothal.
Mm.
And even though we know Hera knows that he didn't, but it's for the audience who've never watched Rebels, maybe that's the reason why they did it. So yeah, I don't know.
I do often think when we get shows made, they are now with a showrunner that has like final say on most things, where old shows would have a script editor, so they'd go over things more when a script was submitted, and they'd do the research to make sure the continuities were right. That maybe that isn't as polished on shows now, just the way things are made at the moment, because you have a showrunner and his vision is the show, and that seems to be a different thing on all the Star Wars series, where it lives or dies by the showrunner and how they're running things. So maybe that's just something that should have been picked up. As Deb said, it could be one word is changed, it corrects it, because there's someone in total control who doesn't reread and edit their script. Maybe they haven't got someone pointing out, hey, that's just a tiny little continuity error.
Yeah, and of course, nerds like us pick up on it. And there's something very interesting. It gets covered off much later in the next episode, which we'll talk about what everybody thought happened to Thrawn. But that's don't want to get ahead of ourselves. This one is interesting, right? Because the whole show is about Thrawn, right? Thrawn this, Thrawn that. No one mentions Moff Gideon at all. Okay, now this is the thing we don't know. We know that this season of Ahsoka and season 3 of Mandalorian are both set in the same year, which is 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. Okay, so it's was it 5 years after Jedi? Is Gideon alive or dead at this point? Because at the last episode, if I remember from season 3 of Mandalorian, he gets blown up on Mandalore, right? If this episode occurs before that, then why is it Ahsoka saying, "Oh man, Moff Gideon is also a threat because he also controls Imperial forces"? Now, if this episode is after that, that means Gideon theoretically is dead. Then the line about Thrawn being the threat makes sense. But because this show aired after Mandalorian, it's not clear as to where it all fits. If someone had said, "Oh, Moff Gideon was a threat, but he's a threat, he's dead now," then we know where it fits. But at the moment, we don't. But they're not mentioning him at all. And Moff Gideon is a threat. As you know, he's trying to do the cloning thing, and he's got the droid thing going on. And up until recently, he was the big bad guy. And it's just like they've just ignored him completely. So I'm not sure how that all sort of works. So,
the other thing we discussed, if this is set after the Mandalorian Series 3, we saw full episodes where there were Council of Imperials talking about Thrawn, and that he wasn't missing at all, and they knew where he was and was getting messages and stuff like that. So it is a bit weird from that point of view. Suddenly there's a map and no one knows if he exists or where he is or where they're from, kind of thing. I think you looked into that though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, and I'm going to bring that up later on. And even Deb's on the ball about saying about the Shadow Council. So, I mean, Moff Gideon was sort of like an outsider of that, but they're all part of the same thing. And in that last episode, or second last episode of Mandalorian, Thrawn got mentioned as being a bit of a bad dude. But up until this point, Moff Gideon has been the major threat to everybody. And they just didn't mention him at all. So I'll have to assume that he's dead by the time we see this episode. But it would have been nice to have the reference. So you can't just ditch your bad guys. So anyway, doesn't matter. But Ahsoka think that Thrawn is worse than Gideon. Maybe, but Gideon is here today. He's standing right in front of everybody. He's got his forces. He's blowing up stuff left, right, and center. Thrawn is just a word. It's just a name. So it's not really apples for apples. And from the for people who say, well, I've just watched Mandalorian, now I'm watching Ahsoka, I'd like to have a link between the two, not just ignore what we've been seeing after all this time. So that's just how I saw it. So, yeah.
Well, it's especially one of those things where they've kind of said not all these series are really going to wrap up until they do a movie in 3 or 4 years' time. So you would think they'd umbrella better if they were going to eventually go to a big screen finale.
Yeah, and just to finish it off, if you had the two of them standing side by side, Thrawn here and Gideon there, everybody, and I said this even when we did the Mandalorian reviews, everybody would turn to Thrawn because he's got this big history, whereas Gideon's just a fill-in bad guy. Colin said he doesn't know who Thrawn is. Yeah, dude, I can't. It'd take me hours to explain it. Unfortunately, it just goes right back to the novels of the 1990s, and there's a lot of backstory there. But effectively, he was a Grand Admiral, and he was a really cool puppy, and everybody loves him, and he's a fan favorite, and yay team. So.
If you are really interested, Colin, there's a great shop in Blackburn called Aaron's Collectibles that has the 3 hardback books of the Thrawn trilogy
books. Yes, check them out. You got to do that.
Great read.
Yes, and DJ said, if you want to wreck your brain, where does Sabine fit with Bo-Katan and the Duck? So that's a different show. We're just going to move on from that. All right, let's get on with it. Okay, so love this one. The Mon Calamari are back where they're meant to be, up on the bridge. Didn't you think straight away? It's like, dude, don't go up there, dude. It's a trap.
Yes. Yeah, there's only two lines that come with seeing the Mon Calamari, isn't there? It's like the can't repel firepower of that magnitude, and it's a trap.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely love it. It's fantastic. And I agree with you, Deb. He's an evil Smurf, the world's second biggest Smurf. What can I say? All right, got over that out of the way, right? Finally, now you have to laugh, right? Remember, this is like the fifth season of Rebels. We end up on Lothal, and for those who never saw Rebels, this was the Tatooine version of Rebels. We never got off this damn planet. What is so special about this goddamn place, right? They were building TIE fighters there for a while, and then they did TIE defenders, whatever, and our heroes were based there. Who gives a rat's bum? They could have been anywhere, right? And it took them years to get off this damn planet, but it was the Tatooine of Rebels, but it does look damn good. And one of the things, and we've said this before, throughout all the series they've done for Star Wars, the production design, the imagery is stunning, and it really did look good. And I've got to admit, as someone who did watch Rebels, they replicated it really well, and it was beautiful to look at. Even when we went to Corellia later on, you can't knock the imagery of these shows. They're just stunning. So
it is one of those things where I watch it and go, gee, that'd look good in the cinema. Gee, that looked good in the big screen. The model work or the CG work on spaceships is top notch. You can't fault it. The environments and the production design are fantastic as well. Yeah.
True. Now, Deb said there was a Jedi temple. There were Jedi temples everywhere. We saw them all over the place. Every episode, there was a temple here, temple there. It's like the Jedi went completely ape, and they said, yeah, it's like a McDonald's outlet. It's like every new time they just conquer a country, stick a temple in there. So, yes, they did have one, but, it was a bit of a big deal.
Can I have midi-chlorites with that?
Yeah, midi-chlorians, yeah, absolutely. They did get off Lothal, but they just went back to it. It's like, for crying out loud, can't you guys go somewhere else? Well, who cares? It's just a goddamn planet. It's not like Coruscant or something really, really important. Even Ilum had a whole lot of like kyber crystals, and they could have used that, but they didn't. But anyway, doesn't matter. I had to laugh. All right, we talked about Highlander earlier on. All right, absolutely fantastic. Now, when it comes to leadership, there can be only one, and a good old Clancy Brown pops up in this. Absolutely fantastic. There's Governor Ryder, Azadi, and Jay Kell is the other guy, and and that's Jay Kell back there. And of course, both of those guys were in Rebels, so that was a nice little gag. But as soon as Clancy Brown turned up, I said, "Oh, how about that?" So very cool. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So I didn't remember they were in Rebels though. So there you go.
Yes, they carried over a lot of characters from that. And in fact, with that in mind, and I've got to admit, this was actually kind of clever, right? The mural that they've got in the background in this is exactly the same design as the one they appeared in Rebels. I was really, really impressed, right? So that's the entire Ghost crew. Now we've seen Zeb already in Mandalorian season 3 in one of those episodes in the bar. Kanan is dead, right? Spoiler alert for those who haven't watched Rebels, and of course everybody else pops up in this show. And you've got the Wolves, which of course were a bit of a big deal in Rebels. And if you want to compare the pictures, that's how it looks in Rebels. And of course, you notice Sabine's hairstyle is exactly the same as what you see in the final that's bad English, final scene of episode 2. I thought that was kind of cool. But they've replicated that down to the last T, which was kind of groovy.
I did think a joke that was lost is when Sabine was looking at it later, she could have looked at it and sort of gone, looks nothing like us. Which addresses what the audience thinks sometimes when they don't get an actor or actress that looks exactly how we expect them to.
I like this one from Deb. Hang on, I'm just going to go back to the picture. Where was it? Design is similar, but not exact. Oh, I thought it was pretty good, but I mean, I'm not an artist, so there you go. Zeb does look stupider. That's Zeb way up there. He does look a kind of. If you were Zeb, you would kind of be miffed. You go, hey, everybody else is looking pretty good. Why do I look like I've been chasing park cars?
Yeah.
Yes, love it. Absolutely fantastic. Hang on. Sorry, I didn't even show the picture. Sorry. Yeah. So what I was saying, Zeb up there looks like he's been chasing parked cars. So yes, you are right, Deb. So very, very cool. Good-o. And I agree with Blake, who's my next door neighbor. It is good details, and that's what's cool. They match it all up, and people can sort of relate to it. And a lot of people, a lot of fans, they do look for these little details. Hence the reason why when they make a mistake or something goes a bit cockeyed, people will go, that doesn't really work. Suddenly, this is what I found was funny, right? Now, we had said for the most of the show, Ahsoka's been in it, just plodding along, doing a thing, kind of a bit on the boring side, the Qui-Gon Jinn. We get Sabine come into it, and all of a sudden, she becomes the focal point of the program. It's like rename the show from Ahsoka to Sabine. And I thought that was interesting. And, of course, she's a Mandalorian, for those who didn't know, and she clearly isn't part of the Children of the Watch. This knows, this is the way. Forget that. She's completely independent. So, and this scene was actually really well done. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a really great scene. I think if we start addressing some of the talking points that I've had in the shop over the last week with different people who've watched it, where it really does from this point kind of become the Sabine show. And that might have been fixed if instead of having 2 episodes, they'd had an hour and a half premiere, because at least you sort of don't have the break between it's one long story and then you have the big lightsaber duel sort of at the end. So you kind of get Ahsoka in it a little bit more, even though it's the same thing, just as one whole thing rather than a break in the middle. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, I mean, it was good that they brought her in the first time she's been in live action. They did it really well. It was all great and wonderful, but it just felt like Ahsoka got pushed out of her own show, and all the focus was on Sabine. And realistically, you go, well, why? What's the big deal of that? And I just, it's almost like she's the new kid in town, and it's like we got something brand new and shiny and flashy. So Ahsoka's already sort of like just on the outer. I don't know, but her sequence, the whole sequence is great. I mean, it all looked fantastic, as we said earlier. But I did notice it was a real, and I wasn't the only one who picked up on it. There's a real shift of focus, at least for this episode, for Sabine being the priority rather than the secondary character. And I thought Ahsoka's getting ditched already, and it was only the first episode. So,
And Moneybags has brought up one of the discussions we had about the music that was playing when she was on the speeder.
Oh yeah, Asian Punk is now the go. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Here's a good comment from DJ from back here. If your narrative requires to have a wiki open, in other words, you've got to read all this stuff to keep on top of what's going on, then clearly it's not going well for you. And there is a little bit of that. And as I said, I don't know what it was like for people who've never seen Rebels, whether they understood it or not. They might be going, who's she? What's the deal? Don't get it.
Yeah.
So, she should be expressing some actual emotions. So, yeah, I like this. Ahsoka Rebels Season 5. As we said earlier, it really is Rebels Season 5 when you sit and analyze it from that perspective, at least this episode. So, speaking of which, right, so you got to have your cute and fluffies now, of course, in Mandalorian. Grogu is the go, right? Everybody loved Grogu, but Grogu isn't in this show. So, it's like you need a replacement. So, you might as well just chuck in a Loth Cat. This thing got more screen time than just about anybody. What's the deal with that?
Well, I think I said to you, the thing I was looking at the Loth Cat is they have chicken feet. So if you're a Wookiee, that's a 4 drumstick animal right there.
You'd be asking for your money back, wouldn't you? I mean, it's like, okay, she walks in, you got the cat there, yeah, give it a pat, whatever. But it's getting close-ups left, right, and center. It's meowing here and meowing there, and she feeds it and all this sort of business. Is like, what the hell? You're the new cash cow. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to discuss this later on. I bet the merchandisers are going, when can we start introducing Loth Cats? She didn't even give it a name.
Do you know what?
She called it Kanan.
I have a vision in my head. Loth Cats with a little tiny saddle and Grogu riding them.
Oh, see, where's the merchandising department? That's an absolute no-brainer. It's just weird. It's like, who cares about the damn cats? Oh my goodness gracious me! So, yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And then Daniel said about seeing the E-wings. Yeah, wackadoo. Yep, new ships. Yep, you've got to have new ships. I mean, what happens when they get past 26 ships and the Rebel fleet or the whatever fleet they got? They're going to say have to AA ships or AA wings or something because they run out of letters.
They've run out like more letters than a pride rally in the Imperial shipyard, isn't there?
Yeah. So DJ said he barely watched Rebels and he was found impenetrable. I got no clue what's going on. The characters are saying names and I don't know who they're talking about. Yes. So yes. I don't know. So, and I know some people say, "Oh, you watch these shows, then you go back and watch the animated series to see what's going on." Most people won't do that, especially when there's 4 seasons of Rebels. And Rebels was good, but it wasn't great. And Ezra, who I'm going to talk about in a second, was an absolute pain in the ass at the best of times. So. I don't know. So there you go. Yes, KFC's new 4-piece feed. Love it. Yeah.
I do think sometimes we get caught up on the continuity. As a Doctor Who fan, I remember as a kid watching the Doctor Who episode that referred to something in another episode I'd never seen, and I just accepted it as part of the story. So it is one of those things, you have to have that in a franchise that's just gone for so long. But I do understand you don't want to have encyclopedic knowledge to enjoy a piece of television either. So it's kind of a bit of both sides there.
It's a good point. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I guess we see things differently. We analyze things differently. We look for the details and it's like, oh, this works. This doesn't work. I don't know. Maybe for people to just take it at face value, be curious to see what they think. I like this one. Did we see Ahsoka come in with the Loth Cat teleclinic? I wouldn't have thought so. It was actually Ezra who was the guy who could connect with animals. And that's the reason why he was able to deal with the wolves and the Purgles and whatever. Speaking of Ezra, He finally appears in live action. He does actually, he's meant to be 18 years old, at least 18, right? So he was born on Empire Day, which is Revenge of the Sith. They made a big song and dance about that in Rebels. So by the time they've done this, the season 4 of Rebels is 1 year before A New Hope in Rogue One, right? So that is 18 BBY. So he's got to be 18 years old. He just looks a lot older than that. But I've got to say, I never liked Ezra as a character in Rebels. He was an absolute pain in the ass at the best of times. But he was the main dude in the end, and they've brought him into live action, albeit in a hologram. So there you go.
Yeah, I probably, like you, didn't think he was the best character ever, so not having him in this is fine by me.
Yes, and people say, "Oh, I can't wait to see Ezra," and I go, "No, I'd rather we don't see him." So there you go. You are right. Yeah, Star Wars Aladdin, most definitely. What's interesting is if you ever never watched Rebels, you'd be thinking, "Oh, Sabine was obviously his better half, his bit of fluff," and of course that wasn't the case at all. She had no interest in him whatsoever. He had a crush on her. But, the way she's looking at the hologram, she's getting a bit, not teary-eyed, but a little bit emotional, you could say. And I think it was because of the guilt factor of his sacrifice. But she had no interest in him at all that I can remember. And he was always the one who had the hots for her. And she's actually a few years older than he is. So,
yeah. Well, that
you would
happens.
think, if you've never seen Rebels, you would think otherwise, that she was his girlfriend or something. What do you reckon?
Well, that happens in the Star Wars universe, where the older women go for the younger kids when they grow up a bit. But watching that, it did feel like when he called her, "You're like a sister to me," that she was actually disappointed, because she seemed to have, it was played like she had more romantic feelings to him, not a brotherly feeling. But I don't know. That's what it came across to me anyway.
But unless it's one of those things, you don't know where you got to, it's gone, and he's nicked off with Thrawn onto something, and then she says, "Oh my God, I love you." He's like, "I love you," and he's like on his way across the galaxy, going, "I know." I didn't know. Yeah, but it was kind of weird. It gave the impression that they were romantically involved, and they weren't, not by a long shot. And she just didn't give her, from a romantic perspective, a rat's bum about him at all. So there you go.
Yeah.
Now, DJ's made a comment just quickly about the Inquisitor we're going to see later on in episode 2. I'm not going to put the message up because we haven't got to that point just yet. Yes, dude, what are you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you.
We've heard the theory that if you've been warned, if you start down the dark path, will forever dominate your destiny. Will Ezra be a dark side user now? They did introduce that into Rebels, and they didn't progress with it, and I was so annoyed, right? And they were really touching on that because they bring in Maul and all this other stuff. And it's like the writers got cold feet and said, no, you can't have the good guy turn bad because all the kids love him. Can't do that. And they just abandoned that entire story. And I was really pissed because that was awesome that they did that. And he was actually controlling vehicles and killing people and all that. And I go, oh, this is cool. He's going to turn into a nasty pasty. Nah, went back to G-rated into that. So there you go. Very good. Once again, beautiful imagery. Now, of course, this particular tower appears in Rebels, and it looks just like that. I mean, if you look at that image, you go, is that the animated series or is that actually the TV show? And I'll be a couple of shots like this I'll be bringing up later on, but I thought that was absolutely stunning. So very cool. And this one, now this has got a bit of a head scratcher. Sabine is an apprentice to Ahsoka that did not appear in Rebels at all. Okay, so that must have occurred afterwards. And a few people, I picked up on this straight away. That's how bad of a nerd I am. I thought, hang on, no. And it turns out that Ahsoka and Sabine barely cross paths in Rebels at the best of times. And however, at the end of Rebels, this is what happened. So Ahsoka, as we saw earlier, she had the purple hair, what do you call it, the short haircut, went up to the mural, puts the helmet on, and then leaves with Ahsoka. And that's one of the last shots of the entire series. So something happens with them later on, but we don't know what it is. And I thought that was quite interesting. But so for those who were wondering, she was an apprentice. In what regard? And that was not in the show. That's occurred afterwards. So there you go. Very cool. Any thoughts on that, dude?
Yeah, I guess it goes into this whole dropping 2 episodes at the same time. I find it very interesting. They introduced conflict between them, so they weren't talking and there was an issue, and then they resolved it in the first 2 episodes. It's almost like they didn't need to do it because there was nothing there from any other Star Wars canon, unless it's been in comics and something that I haven't read.
Yeah.
So I do understand, because it was almost like, okay, they worked out all their issues. Now we can go on and have adventures. And I think that's why they dropped 2 episodes at once, because you wouldn't want to spend 2 episodes of them being moody with each other before they go off and do their Thrawn hunting.
True. So it was definitely a carrot that was dangled in front of the fans and go, oh, okay, we haven't seen this. What's the deal with that? So I guess all will be revealed later on, especially at the end of season episode 2 when she does go off with Ahsoka. So, yep, I'll be apprentice once again. Make of that what he will. Cross those bridges later. Now, I like this one just quickly that Shin and Sabine are not a fan of witches. I thought that was an interesting comment. I remember Shin is the Padawan to the Dark Jedi dude. They're not a fan of witches. I thought that was an interesting comment. And I love this room, mate. The table and that comes up from the floor. What a freaking grouse idea. Why can't we do that in real life? That was awesome. And I like the fact that when Sabine left, she put the floor back down again, as in the tables and the chairs. I thought that was awesome. What do you reckon?
I think we probably can have rooms like that, but it's only moneybags that can afford to make them.
I thought that was cool. They press it and the whole lot comes up, a table, chairs, the whole bit. And I go, that is grouse. So if you had to do calisthenics classes, you can just lower the whole lot, do what you need to do. So providing you don't put furniture there or people, because they'll just crush as it raises up. I thought that was ingenious.
Do you know what, Dags? The last thing I was thinking was maybe I could put them down to do calisthenic classes.
Have some nerdy get-together meetings, set up a projector, get some chairs, and then clean the room and raise the whole lot out of the floor. I thought that was brilliant. And I think that was a practical effect too. I think they did that for real because it certainly looked that way.
It looked for real.
So back to Sabine and Ahsoka, right? About being a Jedi. Now, this then raises a question: is Sabine Force sensitive? And if so, that has never been mentioned anywhere. Now, she's a Mandalorian. Remember that, kids. Don't forget that. That's a new development if that's the case. So when she said, she was an apprentice to Ahsoka, like apprentice what, right? Does she have Force capabilities? If so, no one mentioned it. Kanan didn't mention it. Ezra didn't mention it. No one ever mentioned it. So if this is a new development, then those guys especially Kanan, because he was the big wig of Rebels, they clearly missed something along the way. So, or unless she's being trained as an apprentice without Force capabilities, because even Huyang, whatever his name is, said that her skills were pretty lousy. So
yeah,
that is, I don't know where that's come from. So
do you know what? It kind of goes back to an older time for me, because when we just had the original trilogy, I thought if I trained hard enough, I could become a Jedi. And it wasn't till you get like episode 1 and it's something that you've got in your blood and all of that kind of thing that kind of changed the balance. I don't know when you were a kid growing up and watching them if you thought the same thing or if you always thought you had to have like an inheritance or something. I always thought Luke was super sensitive. I just thought anyone could train to be a Jedi, but obviously not.
No, definitely not. You have to have the midichlorians. Moneybags has said there's been Mandalorian Jedi before. That might be true, but that's not the point. The point is that suddenly, if she's Force sensitive, no one's ever picked up on it, right? It's like, how they missed that? Even Ahsoka missed it, Kanan missed it, Ezra missed it. Suddenly, if she's got these powers. So that's just come out of completely left field. So
she's a bit old.
And that's what I said. He said his Force sensitive is quite low. Low being what? Non-existent? I mean, everybody's got maybe midichlorians and maybe some of you have 1 and you need like 6 just to be able to move a stone. I don't know, but that's a new development. What can I say? It was never mentioned anywhere in Rebels. So sorry, dude. You going to say something?
No, just agreeing.
All right, cool. All right, now you picked up on this. Even I didn't notice this, but I thought this was the greatest thing of all time. So you got the ball. How do you open the ball? Just treat it like a Rubik's Cube.
I did think that was crazy. After Ahsoka had solved all these puzzles by putting them on plinths and pointing them to different star systems and got the ball, all you had to do to open the ball was turn it twice one way and once the other. Are we really saying that Ahsoka didn't try to move it around like that? I thought that was one of the most pathetic things ever. I was hoping it would open and then you had to use Jedi powers to do something else and there was all different levels. No, you turn it 3 times and it spits out the hologram and shows you where Thrawn is.
I love it. That was grouse, right? And I had the Tri-Quatra thing from Charm. But yeah, you just move it around. I was like, that's all there was to it. Oh my God, how stupid are these people? Because when they said it needed a key, it was like, didn't need a key at all. You just had to twist it around. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right. Dodgy.
Yeah, just a bit. All right, so we're saying that Thrawn's in another galaxy. I don't know why. And because it looked like the Milky Way, which is way up there on the right-hand side, which I thought, oh, my God, don't tell me he's like walking down the street. Did you see Thrawn? He's at the local 7-Eleven standing to Elvis. And I don't know why they just didn't use the unknown regions where the First Order will come from and all that. So another galaxy, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But I don't know what the deal was with that, but there you go. So...
It did remind me a lot of when R2 shows the map to Luke Skywalker in Force Awakens.
Yeah. Some things just don't change, do they? And just getting back to I love this. This is just beautiful, stunning imagery when she's got the binoculars looking into the sky. I just wanted to highlight that because it was all misty. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
But downstairs, there's a big fight going on right now. Of course, it doesn't take much to work out that if you've got a Force-sensitive saber user, in this case Shin, versus a normal person who's just swinging a laser sword, it really shouldn't be much contest. Even though Sabine was trained in some saber use by Kanan, it really should be no contest. It should be whack whack. You're gone, sunshine. And of course, when you're saying gone, it is a stab in the chest. And of course, people complaining. It's like, why can't people die from freaking saber wounds anymore? What's the deal with that?
Well, the thing is, why did she put it in and pull it out in exact the same position? Why didn't she draw a letter or Z or something like Zorro and really mess her up? We have said it before. A lightsaber is a non-lethal weapon. Doesn't kill anyone anymore.
Yeah, it was a really anticlimactic moment. They weren't going to kill Sabine. I mean, no, dare I say it, Disney show is going to kill off a main superstar character in the first 20 minutes after they've been introduced. She was always going to live, even if you hadn't seen the trailers. It was a no-brainer. Right?
I don't know. Willow killed Warwick Davis' professional career in the first 20 minutes of the episode one.
Indeed. And some people have theorized that maybe Shin was deliberately not trying to kill Sabine. As to why is anybody's guess, but either way, a lot of fans were not happy. It's like, come on, it's like they're thinking Qui-Gon's death was now meaningless because every time someone gets one in the guts, they just don't worry, they'll be back later on. So it was a nice ending, but a bit wanky. Now, believe it or not, before I get back to you, that's the end of the episode. Christy, if you're still awake and still watching, I need your crimson yawns for this episode. Remember, the more yawns, the worse it was. The less yawns, the better it was. And that's how this episode finished up. So, Master and Apprentice. Dude, what are your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was a good opening episode. It wasn't the best opening episode of a Disney series. It wasn't the worst. It was pretty to look at. Has an attractive cast. There was action in it. There was some slow bits. I'd probably give it a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I know a few people have sort of said the 7s and 8s. So I think that's probably close to the mark. Chris has made a mention. I had to find the Tri-Quattro from the hologram before she... Yeah, I got a lot. But in the end, it's still just had to move it around. It wasn't like it was a hard thing to do. So it looked relatively simple when you sit and think about it. But the Rubik's Cube, good old Greg's thinking logically, not a thing in the galaxy far, far away. How do you know? They could be in the store of galactic antiquities and objects of interest, if you remember that from Andor. So we thought they were voodoo magic. I love that. So very, very cool. So all right. So what did Christy think of Master and Apprentice? Now we love Christy's reviews, her opinions, because she's very honest, a straight shooter, no mucking around. She gave it the full 8 yawns, and that is equivalent of 2 out of 10. Oh, jeez, cop that. Too much background info. 2 out of 10. Crikey's, even Andor scored better than that. Oh my God, Christy, give it the boots.
I think even Legend of the Sea Devil scored higher than that.
Well done, and I agree with you, Christy. You need to know a lot of background. As DJ said earlier, he was losing track of what was going on. It was a massive risk, but I thought, wow, how about that? What do you reckon?
Well, again, my wife said there was a lot of slow parts in it. She thought it was a bit boring.
Yeah, DJ said it. You're visually stunning and good story. You should need to do homework. I agree with you. And Chris has said people couldn't understand Watch Rebels. Didn't know this. Thrawn expanding. Totally agree. Right? I absolutely agree. If you'd never watched any of the animated stuff, you'd be going, "Who's Thrawn? What's the big deal with this puppy?" I couldn't care less about him, and I totally get that. So, look at this. I'm tempted to give it the dust boots. Yes, and even though it's catered for the fans, not all fans watch the animated shows. I don't know how they could have got around it unless they introduced Thrawn first and showed what he looked like. He's the blue-skinned chest dude with Ezra, and the last few moments of Rebels in live action, I don't know. But interesting point. Anything you want to say about it before we move on?
Quickly, it is interesting for Disney. If there had been no other Disney series and this had been the first one, and this was the first Star Wars we got after sort of Rebels Series 4, everyone would have, I thought, gone, that was fantastic. But because we've had so many Andors and Mandalorians and Grogus and stuff like that, I think our expectations are raised, and Disney should start ramping up for that as well.
Yeah, I maybe. It's a good one. So, yeah, if you ended up with saying people who never watched Rebels, what their thoughts, and those who did, what do they think? So we rated it higher, and we know Rebels quite well. So we've said 7 to 5, 8, 6, whatever. People who didn't watch Rebels have really marked it down. So I guess that chasm is never going to fix itself. So, but there is an assumption that you have watched it. Sorry?
One quick one, which is interesting. A couple of kids came in and said, we didn't like it because where was Baby Yoda?
Well, he's a cat now. Dudes, go for the cat, with the spindly legs. And we see that cat again, for crying out loud. So there you go. In episode 2, Toil and Trouble. So we're going to play through this one. This one's a bit shorter than the previous episode. So just stick with us. Once again, there's still spoilers for those who don't know this stuff. All right, we're off to the galaxy far, far away version of Stonehenge. How grouse was this? I thought this was awesome. And for those who didn't know, there are sounds of purgles in space. And the purgles are the things that took Thrawn and Ezra off into Nana Land. Hyperspace whales, if you will. But I thought this is kind of groovy. What do you reckon, dude?
Okay, again, it goes to my thinking too logically about stuff. Is this there just to act as a way to show the map to Thrawn? And does that mean that the map isn't unique? There's all these different balls all over the place that they can go there, and there's the way to 7-Eleven, there's the way to Galactic Got-By. Because why would they have built this ancient monument just for that one thing to come there and show the map to Thrawn? It doesn't make sense, especially if they only lost him 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, they had to put in the sixth element, and someone's decided to stick a ball inside it. I don't know, dude. I like it. Chris had to binge Rebels. Oh, dude, I don't know how you caught that. Jesus, oh, that's just killing me just thinking about it. So, very good. Yes, I don't know. It's one of those things you shouldn't have to think about. Someone said, let's make a map, stick it in this stone, stick it in this temple. Why is anybody's guess? Don't worry about it. But we're not worrying about that. We're at Stonehenge, right? And I wasn't the only one who thought this too. Morgan says it was built by from a people from a distant galaxy. And I thought, oh, hang on, this could be the Yuzan Vong. And for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, don't stress. They were from the expanding universe, but they were from a distant galaxy, I think, invaded our galaxy, the galaxy far, far away. Highly unlikely, but I did think it was interesting that they should reference ancient people. And I thought, oh, there you go. So make of that what you will. And now this is what I liked, right? I really did dial into this. Some people have been critical of Shin and Baylan because they've been relatively two-dimensional. But I did like Shin because usually when you see bad guys in the Star Wars universe, they're all bad, evil. We're going to take over the galaxy, kill the good guys, yada, yada, yada. But she was one of the few occasions, one of the only occasion where she was actually apprehensive as to what the plans were. She seemed to be a bit unsure as to what was going on. And I really liked that. It gave her a little bit more of a, oh, hang on, what are we doing? Are we actually trying to get someone from a distant galaxy? We're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, rather than just blindly following what Baylan was doing. And I know later on he mentions something about the Jedi. But I really liked her for that reason. I thought, oh, that's interesting. They're adding a bit of extra depth in her. She's not 100% sold on what's going on.
It is Sith only deal in absolutes. They're not Sith because they seem conflicted. They're in it for themselves. She doesn't seem to like to be ordered around by the witch either. So it is one of those things where like I said, she looks at the ground a lot. A lot of the time she's thinking, what are we doing here? Why aren't we just out doing our own thing?
That's a good point. She doesn't like Morgan because she doesn't like witches, or she doesn't trust Morgan. Yeah, you're right. She actually says it in the show, oh, bloody witches. It's like, oh, Morgan's a witch. What the hell? That's a very good observation, and I hadn't really sort of realized that. But yeah, and you are right. They are mercenaries. They're hired, make of that what you will, by Morgan to do whatever they got to do. But as to whether that means later on she's going to shift allegiances, I don't know. But I did like the fact that she wasn't 100% complete. What do you call it? The complete psycho one-track mind bad guy thing. I really like that. So there you go.
Chris, that's because there's weeping angels.
Oh, yeah, it never blinks. Oh, I hadn't noticed that, but that's actually kind of cool. But I like it. I'm very curious to see what they do with her. This I thought was really impressive, right? It's the visual representation of the galaxy far, far away. So if you could say, you put an arrow and go, you are here, just there, it'd be awesome. So half of that is the known galaxy, and the other half is the unknown regions. That I just liked it. I thought that was really cool. So we don't get to see that very often. So loved it.
Yeah, even in the Star Wars galaxy, there's stuff so far away that they can't reach it, or it's hard to reach.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, you are completely correct. Most of the galaxy, the one half is all the unknown regions and wild space. No one's ever been there before. But the other side, which in this case, if they're looking at it correctly, so that side there is all the known galaxy. That's the core worlds there, right? And this side over here is all wild space, unknown regions, and that's somewhere in there is where the first
what we're basically saying, the outer rim doesn't go all the way around; it's just on the one side.
Yeah, it's sort of just sort of like one half. And there are maps you can get, and it's all very groovy. But that I thought was just really, really pretty to look at. And Baylan makes a mention that the Jedi were aware of this faraway galaxy. I thought it's sort of like they're aware of it, didn't make a big deal of it. I thought, that's an interesting sort of point. So. I don't know what to make of that, but I mean, some people have said, why do you need to do different galaxies? Keep it all within the galaxy far, far away. I don't know. So Anyway, just want to bring it up.
Yeah. Well, at least they haven't gone for the multiverse yet. That's when I jumped the shark on Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And of course, this is what we are going to say earlier. It was mentioned way back then. Balin talks about Thrawn's influence in galactic events, and of course, as we noted from the third episode or the season 3 of Mandalorian, that the Shadow Council. Now, what they did is they said that Thrawn was hidden away somewhere. Right? Pelion said that Thrawn's about, but he's staying hiding. Now, either they know he's in exile, whatever that is, or if this episode is before, as in what we're watching now, is before Mandalorian, they've brought Thrawn back and he's just around the corner. He's just off screen. We don't know. But it kind of still matches up as opposed to saying, well, Thrawn's over here, but we're now saying in this show that he's in a different galaxy. So, and exile doesn't make sense. He's not really in exile. He just got taken by Ezra and the Poogles off to Nana land, and it's playing with semantics. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's all, again, it comes down to the writing, and maybe different showrunners and different directors take the show in different directions. Maybe if there was an umbrella and stuff that was happening in Andor led to this, and stuff that was happening in Mandalorian led to this more clearly, it might be better. They might want to keep it vague, though. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's not a showstopper. It's just like little details. And yeah, we are picking up on some pedantic details. Speaking of which, this is a new Jedi Force power I've never seen before. Ahsoka can sense what happened the day before with voices. I thought, is that a new? Could she do that before? Is that a new thing? You know, she's walking around.
Yoda says to Luke, "You can see the past and the future," and I guess that would come into it. You know, he says the future is always clouded, so he can see the past clearer. It just they never really use it, do they?
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that way. But the future, the past being like 12 hours ago. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll allow that. But I thought it had voices and everything. And go, oh, yeah, okay.
You know, we have seen it when Rey touched the lightsaber.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But it was that set off all these visions, and in the end, it was just a whole lot of weird and wacky shit. But as opposed to saying it's like a CCTV recording, but you know, there's no cameras, and she's just going, oh, hand here, hand there. Oh, yeah, they said this, and they said that. Doesn't matter.
They could use her. They could use her on CSI. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, there's a big word for you today. Psycho, what I don't know how to even pronounce that. Psychometry. Yep, that'll do. Doesn't matter. No big deal. Now, this one, I said it before, laughed my head off, and it came back, right? The freaking cat gets even more screen time. And that's why I'm convinced this is part of Disney merchandising, right? Grogu, you're out the door, son. You've had your time. Piss off. Now it's the cat. The cash cow actually looks a bit more like a cow because it's got ears and freaking feet and whatever. What do you reckon, dude?
I reckon they're going to have the adventures of Grogu, a Porg, and the cat.
Oh, dude, the 3-pack. Imagine that, right? It's like, how good is this? Yes.
And a baby,
and
a baby Ewok.
And a baby Ewok. You got to have one of those, don't you? Ah, goodness gracious me. Okay, so Jedi Cal Kestis from the video game from Jedi Fallen Order has a similar ability with sensing echoes of the Force. Echoes of the Force. Okay, because it wasn't an echo of the Force as such. She was just remembering what happened the day before. Anyway, no big deal. It's all good. Very, very cool. The cat came back the very next Cash Cat. Oh, I love it. The Cash Cat. Absolutely fantastic. So there you go. Love it. It just needs a name. That'd be a competition for Disney. It's like, hey, kids, name bloody Sabine's cat. All right. So Ahsoka goes into Sabine's hangout, and it's like, oh, he's behind you. The robot's hanging up on the roof somewhere. And I don't know why she just didn't look on the roof when she first walked in. It was a good scene, but it was a bit wanky at the same time. So, yeah, all good. Very groovy. And that brings us into this shot.
She couldn't sense danger or anything?
Oh, no. Well, she's like doing a B9 danger, Will Robertson. Did you think that I thought, dude, they've taken like this from every computer game in the entire 80s universe. What do you reckon?
I know. It's like you sank my battleship. I did say, do you know what's going to happen? It's going to go all the way to the very last square before they pull the button on it and just get the information they need. That wasn't an obvious sequence, was it? I'm being sarcastic. That was one of those, it's going to blow up. We're going to I just thought that was a bit cliched.
Yeah, totally agree. It'd be funny if someone looks at this thing and go, okay, what do they all represent? Those? Well, what is this stuff down here? Well, like this little mappy thing. What's all that about? But I mean, it's probably intentional. You can probably think of what all those handheld 1980s computer games, and they've just modeled it on that. And she's just pressing all these buttons and shit's going off. And it was cute. when Hera says, "Yep, go ahead and do it," and Hyang says, "Hang on, but you're a hologram." Yeah, that was a cute line. I'll give him that.
I don't know if you remember that handheld game Invaders 2000, which was the same colors. That would have been really cool if it had the same sound effects. That would have been a real good 80s callback, you know.
Yeah, totally agree. Anne just said, "I like this. It's Tetris." Yeah, it's a bit like that. Wouldn't it be funny? Yeah, it's like she said, "They go, I'm trying to reach the next level. It's all good." So
I did think this is going to her being a hologram. It was really interesting for half the episode. She was with them, but she was a hologram while she was with them. Have they done that before in Star Wars? I don't think they have.
Well, they did it in Revenge of the Sith or whatever when they got the council guys and half of them are all on the wars and they all come in as holograms.
True.
So I don't think it's and of course, Sidious and that was always appearing as a hologram. So Gregor said he actually does believe it's a modified computer game. It certainly looks like it. It's clearly a gag, linking back to that. Anyway, so we're back with Ahsoka. They nick off to Corellia, and I didn't put any pictures in, but Corellia looks spectacular. It was just like from the air, it was like, you'd swear it was a real place. It was freaking awesome. And they end up at a shipyard, and as they discover, so Morgan they said that Morgan became a shipyard magnate effectively during the Imperial era, and I thought that was actually interesting. But what I can't work out is why is she so devoted to Thrawn? Right? There's no, it's like, why? What's the deal? What's the connection? She doesn't even appear in the Ascendancy novels. So I can't figure it out. What's the link? She's like, she doesn't give a crap about anybody else. She wants Grand Admiral Thrawn. I don't know, dude. You got any thoughts on that?
I think it'll just be because she wants power. It won't be because she has a link to Thrawn the person. It'll be because she has a link to Thrawn the legend and she wants to be on his left hand or maybe even take over from him, because you're right, there is no other reason yet. Maybe we will find that out down the track. I was going to say, though, Corellia looked better in this than it did in Solo.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Oh, it was a lot darker in Solo, too. It was a lot darker and misty.
Yeah, you couldn't see as much.
Yeah, and maybe this, I thought about it. I thought, we're going to see things that we saw in Solo. It's the other side of the planet, maybe. Who knows? Bright, sunny day, water everywhere. It did look spectacular. I was like, oh, my God. And that's, once again, as you said, if you saw that on the big screen, you would go, oh, God, that's freaking awesome. But, yeah, I was thinking, Morgan's got this massive fascination. If it's just power, maybe she's obviously thought, Moff Gideon doesn't cut the mustard. Don't worry about him. Get this dude who you can't even find is on the other side of the galaxy. And wouldn't it be funny if Thrawn turns up and says, yeah, Morgan, you did a good job. You're sacked. Out you go. Who knows? So
you never know.
Yeah, it hasn't been established yet. And I looked it up today and I thought maybe she's appeared in the past with Thrawn. And because the Ascendancy novels are canon, right? Not Heir to the Empire because they're not, but the Ascendancy novels are. And she's not in them at all. So I thought they don't even have a long history or anything. So
I do wonder if it's going to get muddy because you've got Thrawn who's Imperial, you've got her who's a witch, you've got Dark Jedi, you've got real Jedi, you've got apprentices. It does start putting in a lot of elements into it. I really hope that it, using the recipe analogy, I really hope it tastes good by the end and isn't just a huge mess.
Yeah, you would think by the end of this series, it's going to be this real open-ended sort of ending. So when Filoni does the movie that wraps it all up, it'll join all the dots. And if it does, great. But just like, it's just a question. It's like, okay.
Don't we have to get through Andor Series 2 and Skeleton Crew before we find out what the movie's going to be about?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about just for this particular storyline with Mandalorian, Grogu, and everything this year. Okay. They all part of the same Filoni-verse, if you will, whereas the other shows are set at different timelines. So anyway, not to worry. So I do like this line. An empire doesn't become a republic overnight, and that's what we saw in, where did we see it? I can't remember now, where straight after Jedi, it's like, okay, it's not like the new government just moves on in and the world is good from day one. It's like a massive, massive time to change over. I just thought it was a really good line.
Well, you had,
kind of worked for me. Huh?
You had with Series 3 of The Mandalorian how are the Imperials being integrated back into society? And you can see from this, a lot of them aren't. They're just doing their own thing.
True. Daniel said the Ascendancy novels are set before Thrawn joins the Empire. That doesn't mean anything, dude. They could have had a relationship or a connection like long before then. So, I mean, she's clearly a Night Sister or connected with the Night Sisters. Who knows? Like, 30, 40 years ago, Thrawn and her may have been sort of hanging out in the bar and chatting each other up. Who knows? So it doesn't mean when he joins the Empire, she then has to connect with him. So, but she's devoted to him for some reason. We just don't know what that is. And I'm just curious to see what it would be. Had she been in those books, that would have been a fantastic link. It's like, oh, how good is that? She's in the novels. You can see the connection, but at the moment you can't. So anyway, I'm sure it all will be revealed at some point. Very good.
Maybe she's Mara Jade.
Yeah, I thought that. I actually said that to Moneybags yesterday. I said, maybe she was meant to be the Mara Jade character and they've just sort of changed it around. Who knows?
Yeah,
So
I was thinking something like that. Just you
yeah.
can't, maybe you can't use it, so we'll just slot someone different in. So
Maybe. I don't know. So it's been mentioned. Okay, so we've got these shipyards. They're deconstructing all the Imperial stuff. That got mentioned by Pershing, if you remember, from Mandalorian, because he was upset.
yeah.
And I was like, this is perfectly good technology, and it's all being decommissioned and thrown out and whatever. And of course, in this instance, they're repurposing everything for new ships. The world is good, except for SSD. He actually mentions SSD, Super Star Destroyer. Oh, how good's that? Those big-ass engines, they're going ta-da somewhere. And as it's worked out, there's still people supporting the Empire. And of course, we've said why that is the case, right? It's a cut and dry thing. Just because you change governments doesn't mean everybody says, oh, yes, the New Republic are the be-all and end-all. There's going to be people who said, you know what, I thrived under the Imperial Empire rule. I've now lost my job. I've lost my house, whatever. I'm going to be pretty irked about it. But I did like it that in this sequence, the other guy whose name I don't know, said that they didn't really care. The workers didn't care so long as they got their paycheck. But some of them may have said, you know what, under the Empire, we got paid $50 an hour. Under the New Republic, we're getting paid $20 an hour, right? So, of course, you'd be wanting the Empire to come back, right? Or we've got extra benefits, longer lunch breaks, so more superannuation or whatever. So it's not a simple case of like you replace the Empire with the New Republic and the world is as good. And maybe this has got something to do with it. So there you go.
So was he lying, or did he really think that and just have 3 Imperials right under his nose? And note to management, only get black Imperial droids to work with you, because those red ones will give you away. They can't shut up about what's happening,
Well, I mean, they are programmed that way. But can you see from that perspective? And I like this because in the Star Wars universe, and we've covered this off before, you've got the good guys and the bad guys, the rebellion and the Empire. Good versus evil, right? But you go, well, hang on, what if it's not evil for everybody? What if somebody says, you know what, I like the Empire, they work for me? And of course, this is covered in the Aftermath novels as well, where some people said we liked it when the Empire was in control. And if the workers who are sitting there banging away, disconstructing all this Imperial stuff, said, we're actually got a worse deal under the New Republic, bring the Empire back because it was good for us, you would be shitty about it. And you would be a bit anti-New Republic. And a lot of people don't realize that. So, yes, exactly. The New Republic probably skimp on overtime. See? Easily done. But it was a good sequence, right? It was all good. It was all great and wonderful. So a lot goes on. Sorry, go on.
I didn't think the Emperor paid. I just thought they put you in chains and made you do it, or they shoot your family. But
No,
obviously not on the core worlds where they have to appear good. They just fund everything through slavery in the outer systems, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you still got workers who've still got to pay, because it doesn't mean slavery is like universal. I mean, there would be people who go to work and say, well, okay, last week we worked for the Republic, now we're working for the Empire. We're still getting paid for it to do it, and then whatever. It's not a case of the whole planet, the whole galaxies like that. Only some parts. So everything takes off, right? So we've got ships taking off to the left, and we've got Ahsoka fighting on the right, and of course, that's where this dude turns up. So there's a lot of questions. He's an Inquisitor. Who knew that there were Inkies around? Oh, my God. Yeah. So Marek is this dude's name. Hasn't spoken yet, so we don't know if it's male or female. But I thought, oh, there you go. And everybody's speculating. Who could this person be? Who could that person be? It's like, oh, my God, guys, take a chill pill. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, I thought this sequence was actually pretty good. I did think all the fight sequences in this were good. I wasn't because we'd had... What I thought was interesting, because we had droids with capes in the opening sequence, it was about halfway through the sequence before I actually realized it was a person and not another droid. So when it turned out to be an Inquisitor, it did surprise me.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the deal was with that, but they've obviously made it Inquisitor for a reason, and I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, the fans are going completely nuts trying to figure out who it is. Some people have said, oh, it's Barriss Offee from back in the old days, because she turned into a dark Jedi. Deborah said Morgan doesn't know him. Maybe she's saying she maybe doesn't know him, just hears him. Maybe he's seeking her. Maybe tapping into the witch thing. I don't know. I mean, there wouldn't be many Dathomirian witches left.
No.
Interesting. I don't know. Have to wait and see. So yeah, Marek's turned up. Everybody's gone completely nuts, thinking, "Who's this? Who's that?" Everybody's saying, "Oh, maybe it's Ezra." I don't know. Where people freaking fans wait? Where they get these theories from? They just pull them out of their asses sometimes. What the hell? I love it. It's a dude in a costume, so I assume male. Yeah, okay. Works for me. Some random dude. Love it. Very, very cool. And it was very good.
There is one character from Rebels that I got spot on. They got spot on, and I think it's in this next sequence.
Yeah, it's got to be Chopper. Absolute scene stealer. I mean, looked, sounded, acted. It was excellent. And you look at this picture, and you could swear this was straight out of the animated series. Chopper, they nailed. And I thought that was a brilliant moment. So
It is.
yeah.
It is one of those things. If you're a kid and you grew up with Chopper and you were sitting watching this jaded as sort of a teen, and that came on, you would love this. I thought that really captured the spirit of Star Wars and Rebels. Just that sequence.
And it's interesting because if we've got people watching the show who didn't see Rebels, but you see, I don't know who Hera is, don't know who Sabine is, don't know who Thrawn is, but you see, oh, who's this guy? This Chopper dude? He's freaking grouse. He's chucking stuff around everywhere and he's looking for his bits and pieces. He even gets apart at one point and chucks it out the ship. And that little moment was just ingenious. It was just an awesome moment.
That's the thing that's maybe a problem. They have made Ahsoka too stayed, where something like that is a standout just because he's more animated than the actual real actresses.
That's a very good point. And as DJ said, way at the very, very start, he said, oh, it's all very, very sort of like the tone is very dull and a bit, there's no woohoos or anything like that. And then Chopper comes in and does the exact opposite. Yeah, it's a good point. But Chopper definitely was a scene stealer, a bit like the Loth Cat. Everybody's just looking at it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Loved it. Even the only had a short bit, it was a damn good bit. Now, this one I did like, right? I don't know if anybody picked up on this. I certainly did because I'm a nerd, right? It's a subtle JJ reference to lens flares. What was the deal with those two?
I didn't even think about that, but there you go. They're entrenched in the Star Wars mythos now, aren't they?
Yeah, I love it. It's like, why would they put lens flares in, right through here? It's like you didn't need them. It was like we could tell Hera's flying the ship, and she does look like her Rebels counterpart because she was always flying the Ghost. For those who don't know, there are two ships. You got the Phantom and you got the Ghost, and the Phantom docks in the back of the Ghost, so she's in the Phantom currently. But yeah, got the lens flares going on. Don't know what the deal is with that. Deb is saying Chopper is the best, and he was. If anything, if people said what was the real highlight of the two episodes, it probably Chopper would be right up there at the very top. It's like he was just
that's the sequence. That's the only sequence that really made me laugh. I thought that was a good sequence.
Yeah, actually, I tend to agree with you. Deb said poor Darnell portrays a dude inside the Inquisitors. Oh, the Inkies, mate. The Inkies are back. We haven't seen them since Rebels. Like, how good is this? Got to have the Inkies. We saw him in Obi-Wan Kenobi as well. Yeah, the Grand Inkies. So, love it. All right, we're nearly at the end. So, that was all the thing on Corellia. It was great. It was wonderful. Very exciting. Bit of action. Some beautiful imagery. And then we bugger off back over to here to the world's biggest Stargate. Wait, look at the size of that thing. This is where the Super Star Destroyer engines are going. I think there's 9 of them in this thing. It's like, What the hell's the deal with this, dude?
Well, if they're going into the uncharted regions, see, this is the thing that when they start doing, it's not speed, it's warping space, and it's parsecs. Like, I thought, like, traveling in the Star Wars universe was how good your Navi computer could warp space, not like how big the engines were. But I don't know.
Dude, it's always about the size of your engines. So for those who didn't pick up, that was just a gimme. So this looks like the hyperspace ring that you saw in Attack of the Clones that the Jedi starfighters would fly into, and they just bugger off to Kamino or whatever. It's known as the Eye of Sion. Some people have said, is that inspired by Darth Sion, who's a villain from Knights of the Old Republic, who is not canon. Just sort of mentioned that. So whatever it is, now I don't know if they're going to park a ship in that and then shove off to wherever, but it's pretty effing huge. What can I say? So
imagine if they park a normal Star Destroyer in it to use the Super Star Destroyer engines or something. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah, mate. That's going to leave a mark when that takes off. Yeah, exactly. Size matters not. And, exactly. Hyperspace ring. So I thought it was a Stargate when I first saw it and go, how cool is that? So, hey, we've had Star Trek. We've had Doctor Who. We might as well chuck in Stargate as well. So, yes. And Ads is right. Adsy, the droids always have comic relief. Totally agree. Unless you're a red 3PO unit, because then you're as boring as batshit saying, yep, there's a droid down there. He's pissing off right there with an engine. Absolutely love it. This I loved, right? I mean, sorry, I'm a nerd. I just see these things, right? Morgan says that Ahsoka is the main threat to her plan, right? She says, Morgan's saying, yep, Ahsoka, can't trust her. She's going to bugger up everything. But yet, she's not the most powerful Jedi around. She's not even a Jedi. Remember, she only got as far as being a Padawan. Luke is. Luke is still the bee's knees of Jedi Knights in the post-Return of the Jedi era, right? Bigger and badder than anybody in terms of Jedi Knighthood. He's the main dude. And it's like everybody forgot all about him. Yet he appeared, as we saw in Book of Boba Fett, hanging out with Grogu somewhere. It's like they just ignore poor old fluky Luke. He's just been ditched, mate.
And you know what? In this period of time is probably where he's training Leia as well. Yeah,
yes, or at least getting his temples sorted out or run around. But he's still the main guy. Everybody knows who he is. You think, they would say, yeah, Ahsoka, she's a bit of a threat to us, but she's not the main threat. Luke is, but at least he's out of the picture. Just name dropping alone would have been a nice touch rather than just saying, "Oh, Ahsoka is the main person we're afraid of." It was just a small thing. So very, very good. Love it. And hang on. Yeah. And Greg's having a gas bag about lens flares. Yeah. I mean, we don't really need them, but what the hell? And finally got to my last picture, right? This is where Skull says there are so few Jedi left. And it's like he has a soft heart for him because he doesn't want to kill Ahsoka. And I thought, as you mentioned ages ago, not sure what the deal is with that. So that's good to see. But I thought, is he actually referring to someone specifically? And I don't know. So someone we haven't seen or someone we have seen? Speculative? I don't know what you think.
I don't know. When the droid was talking about the different lightsabers that he had seen, he said he speculated that was his one, and then there was a different one. So maybe he's become more of a caring Jedi lead trainer, even though it's a dark Jedi, than a Sith. You know, there can be only two, and you just kill the other one as soon as you can, just to be more powerful than them. I don't know. I like the characterization where there's a bit more grey rather than black or white.
Yeah, it's just interesting. And of course, it's worth noting when Hoyang says he's picked out the sabers. Oh, this one belonged to Baylan Skull. The other one is not sure of. Because Shin probably didn't exist, wasn't born when the whole Clone Wars thing was going on. So that's probably why he wouldn't have a clue who she is. But
I tell you what, if you're a Jedi and you get a Padawan and his name's Baylan Skull, you're like, oh, I think he's going to the dark side just by like Star Wars naming, stuff. Wouldn't it have been better to say he was Ben whatever, but we think he's changed his name to Baylan Skull, his dark name?
Love it. Deb said Ahsoka was already seeking Thrawn and Mandalorian. Yeah, good point. Well, she's considered the Baron, and Morgan and Ahsoka have gone up against each other. So yeah, okay, fair enough. But all things being equal, though, in terms of the top of the food chains and in terms of actual Jedi's, Luke is still the big cheese. Very cool. And Blake has said that they put in a new type of hologram than seen before. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's just technology sort of being amped up. Someone's got some new funky technology they can do really groovy things with.
Yeah,
very cool. Before I'm going to get to you in a second. That's the end of my pictures. Christy, I need your crimson now. Last time you gave us 2 out of 10. What are your crimson yawns for this episode? Toil and Trouble or whatever it's called. More yawns, the worse it was. The less yawns, the better it was. Dude, what do you got to say?
Blake was just saying about the new holograms. It's the new 5G holograms that are rumored to be spreading COVID through the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, a hologram appears in front of somebody, they start getting cancerous and getting diseased. Absolutely love it. All right, so how many yawns? Will this be a big improvement over the previous episode? Christy's gone for the full. Oh, this is sad as well. 7 yawns. That is 3 out of 10. Cop that.
Well, I've gone the same way. I thought it was probably a tiny bit better, and I really enjoyed the chopper sequence. So maybe a 7 out of 10 for me on that one.
God damn it! Hey, you guys are ruthless. I like that. Ads has said bring on the Bendu, because he wants the Bendu. It's the Bendu, not the Bendo, for the Docky Who link, because Tom Baker played him, and that was in Rebels as well. So unbelievable. How good is that? So what did you have to say about Toil and Trouble, dude? Did it work for you or not?
It was, again, what I said at the beginning, not the worst Star Wars opener, not the best for Disney. So it's going to be one of those series we see when we go along. Definitely better than the Andor opener.
Yeah. I mean, they were completely different theme shows, but you are right in many ways. And Christy said, she gave it the extra point for Chopper. And I think that was a highlight of the entire show. So, it's interesting stuff. I mean, I thought it was enjoyable, but not groundbreaking. As we've discussed, it's not like the writing is going to win any Emmy awards. It's not exactly like a West Wing or like really intense. This is good stuff. It's pretty superficial, really. But I suppose it has to be for the audience. So
we were talking. Wouldn't it be amazing if they brought Aaron Sorkin in to do like the writing on these things, because it really is generic flat writing. There's no outstanding dialogue, really, is there?
Yeah, I think it's aimed, because the show is probably aimed at a younger market, a children's market. People who can go, oh my God, I'm getting dialed into all the female characters and the colors and all the rest of it. It's really great and wonderful. They don't want to do like War and Peace or Westworld or anything really, really intense. But by the same token, people who do want to see some depth are losing it, and especially after what we got with Andor, which was really, really intense stuff. But I guess they have to find a middle ground to a large degree. Mandalorian is the same. Mandalorian is pretty superficial with the dialogue as well. So I guess that's what they're looking at. Very good. Chopper, you're right. Chopper and Huang, it's funny, the non-human characters, the like organic characters sort of save the day. Yeah, good point. Now, believe it or not,
Dr. Huang.
Huang. What?
Dr. Hewitt. Don't worry.
Shut up, you. Before we get, believe it or not, that's the end of our double review. Now, before we go, don't forget, I haven't done this for a long time now. Don't forget, if you haven't done a chance, make sure you check out the Sci-Fi Zone sort of Instagrams and YouTubes and Facebooks and whatever. There's new stuff coming out all the time. But if you want any cool Star Wars stuff, if you haven't been there before, you got to get your ass down there now. It's Aaron's Collectibles. Dude, do a quick spiel for us.
We have so much Star Trek stuff at the moment. It's unfreaking believable. But there you go. Yes, we do have a huge range of Star Wars, Doctor Who, vintage toys, new toys, a bit of everything. And I have to say before we disappear, because Dags never does any self-promotion, if you are looking for some quick reviews on various movies, Dags does a fantastic series, why you should watch, on different various sci-fi movies, which is up on our YouTube and our Facebook page. I would check them out because they're a really great way just to spend 10 minutes listening to Dag's opinion on some of the movie greats.
Yeah, that's 10 minutes of life you'll never get back. What can I say? So there you go. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us and having a bit of fun. And it's been a bit of a laugh and had some gags. Next week, hopefully, should be a shorter episode because there's only one episode. And it comes out in 2 days' time, believe it or not. So Ahsoka part 3, which should be very, very groovy. Yay, team, mate. But still my beating heart. It's very, very cool. At least it hasn't turned into a Book of Boba Fett scenario, which really kind of, in retrospect, a lot of people reckon was complete rubbish. Fortunately, it's not as bad as that, but it's going places. We'll have to see what happens. Very, very good. Any final words before we shove off for the night, Mr. Aaron?
No, thanks everyone for being here and listening. It's good to see everyone again.
Exactly right. All right, party hard, everyone. We'll be back next Monday for some more Ahsoka action, or Sabine, as it were, because Ahsoka's getting the flick out of her own show, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys, party hard, rock on, stay nudie, and we'll see you then. Okay, take care for now.
See you guys.